part of me when I'm watching this, he doesn't look like a bad kid. I'm sorry, guys. He doesn't look like a bad kid. Okay? I'm watching this thing, like, right after he gets hit in the face, go back to it, Rob. And I know this is not a popular position I'm taking right now. Go back to when he's getting hit in the face, okay? And he holds, okay, press play right there. And we don't mean to be playing this episode, so watch this. Boom. Immediately hands go up.
Yep. What's up, y'all? My name is Fitz. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be reacting to PBD's reaction on this topic where a black man in Jacksonville was pretty much assaulted by the police, in my opinion, during a traffic stop. They have a different opinion, and I'm going to really break down some of the nuances here because I want you to see exactly how these situations are handled and how there is a certain bias when it comes to black people, and we're listening to some of these podcast hosts talk about these situations. Before we get into it, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel for the algorithm. Also, if you're a content creator who wants to build their brand online without the burnout, make sure you tap into my content confidence workbook. Information is in the description as well as pinned to the top of the chat. All right, let's break. I'm gonna let it play a little bit and then I'm gonna give my reaction.
Yep. Okay. Hands go up, and the way he talks. He's not. Does this guy have a criminal record or no?
I'm checking right now.
There we go with the criminal record.
However, February was resisting. No previous record.
Let's just assume he's not a criminal.
No, but I'm actually reading you. But let me go through it, and I'm going to go with a very different angle. Can you find out if this guy's got a criminal record? Nothing about his that moment behavior tells me the guy's got a criminal record.
So in other words. And this is the thing that a lot of conservatives like to do, and I consider myself more leaning towards the conservative side. People think because some of my takes I'm more liberal. But here's the thing. A lot of times when I see conservatives with certain issues like the police or whatever, they cherry pick. So on one hand, you're against the government. You're against the government when it comes to politicians and things like that. You don't trust them. You want smaller government. But then when it comes to the way that black people are policed, you're totally cool with the way the government does things. And make no mistake, the police are the government. They are a part of the government. And so they always like to try to go after the criminal record. And my question becomes, what does that have to do with the stop? What does that have to do with the interaction? If this dude was a serial killer that then killed 20 people in his past, what does that have to do with right now? It's cool for media narrative and trying to paint a picture and maybe argue things out in court, but you wouldn't even be able to really use that in court. His past, so it's very interesting that they try to find things after the fact and try to put it and try to make it seem like this is what was going on in the officer's mind and this and that. No, you just don't care.
Does he have a criminal record? It's been described a 22-year-old biology major and marching band. He gives me a vibe of a marching band guy.
Now look at this. Look at this. And they don't touch on this that I'm aware of. Look at the officer background. They want to know about the black dude's background. Look at where it says officer background. It's worth noting, and it says that there's no indication that the person being pulled over has a criminal record. Let's see if they talk about the 5 previous complaints with the department before this incident. It says, it's worth noting, however, that the officer who punched McNeil, identified as D. Bowers, had a history of 5 prior complaints. 5 prior complaints, but they're not going to talk about that. They're not going to go into that. They're not going to use that to try to make a fair argument. Why? Because when it comes to black men and the way that we are policed, our humanity does not matter. But let's see.
Member at Livingston College, no prior convictions, pleaded guilty and resisting. Okay, so okay, hang on. Just wait for me. Just wait for me on where I'm going here. Can you play the clip with the stepfather, Rob? Go to the stepfather playing the clip. Okay, go to the stepfather playing the clip, and yeah, go, make it bigger, and then go to the next slide. Let him play, and then the stepdad speaks, and then the lawyer speaks. Zoom in a little bit.
Is this him?
Yeah.
And it did nothing wrong.
You wait for it. The stepdad comes
I
around.
was really just scared. Just see that video. made me go back to
when I was 22,
when I was
and
22.
it hurted.
It hurted. It made me upset. But I seen what my son did that I had to do.
Okay, pause right.
I'm going to see where they're going with this before I give a reaction. I have a thought in my mind, but I'm going to see where they're going with this. I hope they don't try to put this black man down.
Right there. All right. So, unfortunately, last night, something happened with one of our kids. Anyways, and I have to go pick him up, and I'm talking to him, and we're having a long conversation on the way back. You know what the conversation was? Hey, you screwed up.
So right now what he's doing is he's trying to draw a parallel between him talking to his child and saying the stepdad should have talked to McNeil, his child, and said, you screwed up. So in other words, no accountability for the officer. You screwed up. It's all on you. It's all on you. That's really why he wanted the video of the father to be played, was so that he could draw a comparison between what it's like to be a good father or do things the right way as a father and the wrong way as a father. Even though he doesn't know this father, he doesn't know the conversations that's been had. And I'm gonna dive deeper into this when he gets done talking about his son.
I'm Mindy.
Oh, we got a commercial.
And I'm a meathead. I went to this place to find other meatheads. Didn't really pan out. It wasn't easy.
We got a commercial.
Now it is.
Meat for real meatheads. Yumbo.
Let's get that off the screen.
Imagine being able to build any
So we got a commercial.
thinking about it.
It'll be back on.
Base 44.
All right, let's finish this up. Boom. All right, we back. Here we go.
What are you going to do? Doesn't change my unconditional love for you. Doesn't change the fact that I'm going to be your dad for the rest of your life. Doesn't change the fact that you always know you can count on me. Always you can count on me. Well, guess what? You screwed up. And that causes a decision to be made. Okay? How much you think this kid, up until this point, lived in a household or a community or mentors that have been feeding him this thing about black this, cops this? How many years do you think he's going to...
So I want to point out that now he's going after the black community. Now he's talking about, well, this dad probably wasn't, giving him positive reinforcement or messaging. But here's the truth of the matter. The only calm person in that situation was the black dude being harassed, was the black dude that got punched in the face multiple times, not only just in the car, but when they got out the car, they rocked this dude. They punched this dude dead in his face and chipped his tooth. He was the calmest person there. Now, whatever you want to say about the traffic stop and he should have complied and do that, that's a separate conversation to me, because I don't think just because one thing is true that another thing cannot be true. The real question is, do the police have the right to abuse you if you are not being violent, if you are not threatening them, and you are not being aggressive? Do they have the right to abuse you? In other words, if you're sitting there in a police training class, do they say, in this situation, punch that person in the face? If their hands are up, they're not doing it, punch someone in that face. Is that the training that's happening? Is that justifiable? My question to PBD, since he brought his child in it, it's fair game. If his child was sitting in class acting up, right, talking to one of the other students, and the teacher walked up and punched his kid in the face and started stomping him out, because we're talking about cause and effect now. That's what he's talking about. If you didn't do X, Y wouldn't have happened. If you would have gave him your license and and didn't ask for a supervisor, you wouldn't have got punched in the face multiple times, right? So cause and effect. If his child was in class talking, which everyone knows you shouldn't be doing when the teacher's talking, and the teacher walked up and punched him in his face and stomped him out, would he think that that was justifiable? right? Because now we're getting into the realm of cause and effect. And if this didn't happen, that, would he think is justifiable? Probably not. But he's not going to have a fair conversation because it's a black person. What he probably would have told his son is, you screwed up. You shouldn't have been talking in class. However, he probably still would have sued the school because that's too far. That's too far. The punishment does not meet what was going on. It does not equal that. And in this situation, it did not equal it. But let's see what he's talking about a little more.
A lot in the media doesn't help.
He doesn't give me the vibe that he's that guy, though.
Mm-hmm.
He just did this because it's been fed to him. He gave me the vibes of a good boy that is trying to be better. But guess what? When someone, the basic stuff, when the law tells you, hey, cop pulls you over, do what they ask you to do.
Simple.
What, like, the only reason you would behave like that is because someone fed you nonsense, and now this is what's happening. And you're not a victim. You're not a victim. There's laws. Follow the law. Here's why I pulled you over. This is what happened. It's such a disappointing thing. And then the other part is like the lawyer that shows back up. It's the same lawyer.
You're not a victim. You got punched in the face when you were not being aggressive. And if you look at his charge, I believe it was peacefully resisting. So it kind of doesn't make sense, but he was peaceful in his resistance. He was peaceful. So let's touch on PBD saying you're not a victim, right? You're not a victim because cause and effect, right? If that officer, instead of punching him in his face, let's say that officer pulled his gun out and shot that dude in the head, would he still be sitting here saying, well, all you had to do was comply? It's justified. He didn't give his license, or he didn't do. At what point do we say two things can be true at once? At what point do we say, yes, McNeil could have handled this better, but also the officer could have handled it better? Why is it an either or for them? Why is it an either or? Why do we have to go to the ends of the earth and act like we don't know that police officers shouldn't be acting like that? Right? Because everyone's going to make mistakes. Most people, when you run into the cops, maybe you're not used to the cops pulling you over. Maybe you don't know how things go. All right? Maybe that's the case. But as the trained professional, I'll give you another one. I know PBD's a business person, right? If PBD, I think he does insurance and stuff. If one of his insurance agents were talking to a client and the client was like, man, F you, you piece of shit. Would he then be like, well, whatever my agent does now is justified because that person has no business speaking to you that way? If your agent stood up and spit on him or started punching him in the face or started saying, you would be like, no, that's not acceptable. You have to be the bigger person because you're representing what? My brand. You're representing my brand. So why is it that in business you would want someone that you employ to represent your brand in a positive way and take the higher road and be the professional? But when it comes to the police, if someone on the street does something that may or may not be legal, right? Because, and I'm going to touch on it, may or may not be legal, it's okay for the police to act anyway. And when I say may or may not be legal, understand this. Cops are not lawyers. Cops are not lawyers. They say, well, black people, when you get pulled over, don't try to hold court in the streets. Don't hold court in the streets. Wait to get where it's safe in the courtroom. That also applies to police officers. But people think that when the police say something, that's law. When the police say something that they are the interpreters of the law, and these are not people that went to law school. They probably don't understand the laws. In most cases, they don't, because if they did, why aren't they representing themselves in court? Why don't they have a bar degree, right? Or a law degree and pass the bar? What we know is that police are legally allowed to lie to you. So when people say, oh, well, the police, they're just enforcing the law and just follow the law is open to interpretation. And we know that people get treated differently under the law. So that's a cop out. But let's finish up. I'm gonna wrap this up.
Here that you've seen before. If you go back to the link, Rob, and you go to the third slide with the exact Instagram thing I sent you, you've seen this guy's face before. There's these guys that this is a.
So this is I think this is just gonna get into some political talk. Let me get this off the screen. Yeah. So ultimately, what it comes down to is when these things happen, there's not a fair discussion around it when it's black people, and it honestly leads to bigger issues with black people feeling like they're not heard. When you see this, and then people start, well, there was a knife on the floor, but what does that have to do with anything? The cops were not even addressing that. Let's see if he has a criminal record. No, but then we see that the cop had 5 prior complaints, but they don't talk about that because they have an agenda, and they know that their audience would be mad if they gave a fairer discussion around what was going on. If their discussion was, you know what, that dude, he could have handled that situation better. That cop could have handled the situation better too. That's it. That's a fair assessment. But when everything's on the dude that's not the professional, that doesn't have the training, everything's on him. He was standing there, he was sitting there with his hands up, not doing anything. And then it's like, oh, he's too calm. He's too calm. You can't win for losing. Until we start having fair discussions around these things, it's always going to be like this, polarizing. If it's going to be worse because people have audiences to service now. But let me know what y'all think in the comment section. Tap into the Content Confidence Workbook if you are a creator who wants to get confidence and really have a system for creating content without burning out. Information is in the description as well as pinned at the top of the chat. I'll see y'all in the next video. My name is Fitz.